happening. See, the problem, again, is this tendency to underestimate the Iranians. I think we've done that from the beginning. I think it's a serious mistake to do that now.
And I want to go back to something you said just a second ago, because that was also addressed at this press conference this morning. You referred to what President Trump said in his ultimatum on March the 30th here. That's yesterday. The key part where he says, "We will conclude our lovely stay in Iran by blowing up and completely obliterating all of their electric generating plants, oil wells, and Carg Island, and possibly all desalination plants." This morning, one of the questions for the general was, basically kind of, isn't that a war crime? Now he's going to answer this. Tell me if you can interpret what he said to regular English.
General, the president wrote yesterday that the U.S. might destroy Iran's electricity generating plants and oil wells. Those are his words before ending this operation. Is there a way to do either of those things without seriously harming civilians?
Thanks for the question. We're always thinking about those considerations and develop options to be able to mitigate those risks pursuant to the normal practices that we do in the military.
What? Mitigate pursuant to, wait, what does that have to do with taking out desalination plants? How did you interpret that?
I think that General Kane was brought out of retirement and promoted to 4 stars to do the job. He's going to do what he's told. And from his vantage point as an airman, he and the community of airmen in the Air Force, and probably to a lesser extent in the Navy, but nevertheless as airmen, see this as a brilliant opportunity to validate air power's ability to effectively, quote unquote, win wars. I mean, we've been down this road so many times, we can't even begin to, count them all. So my view is that I think he's aware of that, but he's also going to go back to the things that we did during the Second World War and the things we did in Vietnam. We killed 2 million Vietnamese. How many of those were combatants? Did anyone care? I mean, as war goes on, the logic of violence takes over. And if you can't win one way, then you turn to another. The problem for this approach is that if we destroy desalination plants, if we go forward with this plan to utterly eradicate oil infrastructure, then the Iranians have the ability to target and destroy all of the desalination plants in the Persian Gulf region on the Arabian side. And the last time I looked, there were somewhere between 50 and 57 plants. This would mean that millions of people will die of thirst. That's what it means. And that's setting aside, the fact that we're doing enormous damage to the rest of the world in terms of its ability to grow food because of the fertilizer issue and other critical minerals and chemicals that we can't really live without. So, I think he was telling you, fine, we recognize that, and we'll do whatever we're supposed to do to win this war.
Yeah, that's kind of how I viewed it too, because he certainly didn't repudiate that. But let me just kind of ask you, we have, especially after World War II, most around the world on all sides said, we need to come up with, updated Geneva Conventions and the law of land warfare and things that everybody's, sort of fight fair. You can fight viciously, but you have to fight within these rules, et cetera. And for a long time, at least, people gave them rhetorical support. But now then, it seems to me that that those are basically just dead letters, if ever they were anything here. And what are some of the things that President Trump mentioned on there are just categorically the violations of the laws of warfare, where you punish a population, even things that have no military utility. Can we safely conclude that that no one cares about the law of warfare anymore, and that there are no war crimes in practice?
Remember, as Secretary Higgs has said quite recently, this is a war for Israel against Iran. The Israelis regard this as a war for their existence. The Iranians regard this as a war for their existence. Since we are supporting Israel and doing effectively whatever Israel wants us to do in this war, we have taken on the Israeli mentality, targeting philosophy, and approach to war. And if you want to know what the Israeli approach to war is, you have to look at Gaza, look at South Lebanon. In fact, I would say that the Israeli approach at this point is to create imitation Gazas all over the region. and that includes Iran. If Iran can be turned into a Gaza or subjected to Gazification, and that's the price of victory, that's acceptable to the Israelis. That's acceptable to their lobby in the United States and to the Zionist billionaires who are pressuring Trump to fight this war. Now, I would hope that we have somebody left in Washington with some degree of character and backbone to stand up and say, look, this is not an existential war for us. And to be blunt, we've already done more than we should have done. And if this is not enough, so be it. But we should cease fire because the larger global implications are horrifying, as I tried to point out at the beginning.
You wish you had all the AI tools you need to create organized for you? Well, the new Artlist